You're watching episode number 34 of the Emotional Freedom Podcast. And in this episode, I want to share with you a technique that you can use in order to do inner child healing work. So stay tuned. Hi there, welcome back to the Emotional Freedom Podcast. This is part 4 of a series that I'm doing on the inner child as well as parts therapy. Now, yesterday's topic, we talked about how vulnerable the childhood is and also the kind of devastation that could result in how people have problematic or wounded inner child, which results in unconscious self-sabotaging behaviors or unconscious behaviors that could create a problematic outcome in their lives as adulthood. Yeah. So if you have missed those episodes, you can go back to watch it. It started from episode 31, where I talk about what is parts therapy, and in episode number 32, I talk about what is the inner child. Episode number 33 is the vulnerable inner child, and today's episode, I want to share with you a simple technique that you can use in order to help yourself heal your own wounded inner child. Now, before I go into the technique, I just want to have a very important disclaimer, and that is always seek help from professional therapists or from professional psychologists, psychiatrists who are qualified to help you. Now, this episode is meant more as something that would supplement what they have already suggested to you to do. It's more of an exercise that will help you to be, to a therapeutic exercise. And this is one of those exercises that you can do anytime. And also, especially when you find that for whatever reasons that you are not able to go and seek help from a professionally trained therapist. So with that in mind, let me share with you what the therapy is all about. Now, this technique, I call it as just a writing therapy. Now, what is a writing therapy? Writing therapy is when you actually just write down things that are in your heart, that are penned up in your heart, and just let it be, let it flow, let it go. I want to share with you how I use this to help myself when I went through a very depressed period of my life where I went through depression and when I felt like as if the whole world was caving in. And at that time, I wasn't vulnerable in the sense that I wasn't showing off or letting the rest of the world beyond my wife knew that I was facing problems. So I think it was because of my job as a trainer. A lot of people were looking up at me, and I just felt very uncomfortable to open up and share with people. But now I'm a changed man. Now I'm okay to share about all these things, and especially when I'm going through it myself, I feel I now understand why is it valuable to open up rather than to hold everything in. Yeah, and that's why I'm sharing with you this technique that helped me so much to overcome that dark period of my life. Now, this technique, I actually got it from a book called the Artist's Way or the Artist Method. I can't remember the name of the book. Yeah, it's the Artist's Way, but basically it talks about writing morning pages. And the whole idea with writing down morning pages is to wake up in the morning and give yourself, after you have cleared up, done all your morning routines and everything, go to the toilet, have your breakfast, then sit down and give yourself 15 to 20 minutes to just write things down with, just write it in long form. Someone once asked, so is it okay if I do computer to type it out? The answer is it won't be as effective as if you were to write it down, in long form. And if, let's say, you have injured your hand or you are unable to write, then maybe you can record your voice saying it. So just be resourceful about it, all right? So if you can't write, you can type. If you can't type, you can speak, whatever it is. Now, how I did it was I decided to just follow exactly what the author taught, and that was to write it without any editing. See, when it comes to computer, you can always hit delete, backspace, etc. But when you write it out, if it escapes your hand onto the paper, all right, it's there. Don't go back and delete it. And what you want to do is just to write out whatever emotions that you have, whatever things that is going on in your mind, just write out in the pages. And after you have written it, don't go back to read it. don't go back to read it at all, at least for that day or maybe for that week or for that month. For me, I absolutely didn't go back to read it. And the only time I went back to read it was, I think about 1 or 2 months after I finished that period where I gave myself, I want to write that for 30 days. And then I went back to read it and I discovered a lot of things about myself, which somehow I knew they were there, but I just never addressed them. I just never dealt with it. Now, before I tell you how to do it, here's the result that I got from it. And that is, somehow or another, the depression, that feeling that I had, it just transformed by itself. And I didn't have to go and see any psychiatrist or psychologist or therapist. It was a very useful and helpful little exercise that I did. So I want to share it with you today. Now, this is how you do it if you want to do some inner healing work with your inner child that has been wounded. Yeah. Now, the first thing that you want to do is, of course, get your writing equipment. Yeah, it could be just a simple notebook and a pen. That's it. That's all the things that you need. And allocate some time every morning where you can write uninterrupted. You don't need to have so long, you don't need to have half an hour to 1 hour, right? Nowadays, who has that time? Sometimes even 5 minutes will work. Okay, so find yourself a place, a space, and a time where it works for you to do the writing. Just 5 minutes is okay. I'm sure you can have 5 minutes, right? Okay, step 2. The next step is to let yourself know what is the purpose of you writing this exercise. Now, this is not a diary. It's not for you to write down what happened yesterday, what food you eat, and things like that. No, it's not a diary exercise. Nor is it a journaling exercise where you start to plan for the future, etc. Nope, that's for a different time. The purpose of this exercise is for you to actually voice out all the things that have been inside of you, suppressing you, or all the wounds that have been there due to a wounded inner child. It is meant for you to allow those things to come out. All right, so be clear with your objective. Number 3, start writing and don't edit anything. Just write it out and don't even go back to read what you have written. At least not immediately. You can do that maybe 1 month later, but don't go back and read what you have written. Next point is, don't even think of what to write. Just write what comes to your pen. That's it. The moment you feel something is there, just write it all out. It could be totally rubbish at first, but before long, as you start to write, you begin to pour out those things that are really deep down inside of you. And once you have poured out, begin to experience and feel that a sense of relief begins to grow inside of you. Now, that's the beauty of this simple exercise. It doesn't cost you any money. Well, of course, if you want to go and buy a nice notebook and all that, up to you, all right? But for me, I just grabbed whatever and I started doing it. And it was one of the best exercises that I've ever done. So just write it all out. Don't care about who will read it because nobody is going to read it. And if you like, after you have written it out, you can even go and burn it. I read there was one monk who actually taught that when you have written it down and you burn it, you allow it to be released from your subconscious. Feel free to try it. Okay, so I strongly just suggest and encourage you to give it a try, to write the morning pages. Give yourself 2 weeks, 14 days, right? 2 weeks to do it daily, and set a time whereby 5 minutes after you have written everything, just stop, don't read it anymore, and begin to get on the road of recovery for yourself. I know you can do this, and I'll tell you that it is absolutely worth the time invested to doing it. Because once you have dealt with the hurt and the wounds of your inner child, then you begin to know that you are now opening the door to so much of new possibilities that are just there waiting for you. So, start doing it if you need to. Thanks so much for joining me, and I really thank you for joining me these past 4 episodes in this short mini-series on the inner child, on parts. And share with me what are your thoughts and all that. Leave the comments. Let me know, all right, what do you find helpful? And also let me know if you need any help. And if you need any professional help when it comes to your own inner child and you need something that is like more one-to-one personal and all that, feel free to drop me a line, all right? I look forward to working with you. So thanks so much for joining me today. I hope to see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.